Hey everyone, Brian here, and today we're diving into something absolutely explosive. If you're watching this, you need to hit that subscribe button right now because what I'm about to show you is being actively suppressed by Microsoft. The privacy disaster unfolding with Windows 11 is worse than anyone imagined, and users are fleeing in record numbers. The privacy nightmare that started it all. Let me tell you what's really happening behind the scenes at Microsoft. Windows 11 isn't just an operating system anymore. It's a surveillance platform disguised as productivity software. And Bill Gates himself got dragged into emergency meetings when the scale of the user rebellion became undeniable. Here are the numbers that should terrify you. Windows 11 adoption stands at just 31% right now. That's down from 35% 3 months ago. Let that sink in. Adoption is falling, not rising. Microsoft projected they'd hit 50% by now. They missed by 19 percentage points. This isn't just a minor setback. This is a catastrophic failure in user trust. But the real horror show? 400 million people are still running Windows 10, even though support officially ended October 14th, 2024. 400 million users would rather risk security vulnerabilities, would rather run unsupported software than upgrade to Windows 11. That's not user resistance. That's user revolt. The Microsoft account prison? Let's start with the most obvious privacy violation, the forced Microsoft account requirement. Windows 11. Home won't install without one. Period. You can't create a local account during setup anymore. Microsoft removed that option. You must sign in with a Microsoft email. You must connect to the internet during installation. No offline option exists. No local account option exists. Microsoft literally controls the login to your own computer. Think about what that means. Every time you log into your PC, Microsoft knows. Every time you use your computer, that activity is tied to your identity, to your email, to your Microsoft account. They know when you're online, what you're doing, how long you're doing it. Your computer isn't yours anymore. It's Microsoft's data collection terminal that you paid for. David Chen found this out the hard way. He's a software engineer who bought a brand new Dell XPS in March 2024. High-end machine, $2,200. He opens it up, starts the Windows 11 setup, and immediately hits a wall. Microsoft demands an account. He didn't want one. He's been using local accounts for 20 years to keep things private, to avoid cloud syncing, to maintain control of his own data. He spent 2 hours searching for workarounds, found a method using command prompt tricks. It worked. 6 weeks later, Microsoft patched it. He's on tech forums watching people discover the workaround stopped working. Microsoft is systematically hunting down and eliminating every method users find to maintain privacy on their own computers. David's done with Windows. His next computer is a Mac. 20 years of Windows loyalty, gone. Why? Because Microsoft decided users don't deserve privacy. They decided your computer should phone home with everything you do, whether you consent or not. And here's what makes this truly sinister. The Microsoft account isn't just for login, it's the gateway to Microsoft's entire ecosystem. OneDrive forced syncing, Microsoft 365 subscriptions, Edge browser defaults, Bing search integration, everything designed to funnel you toward Microsoft subscription services, to keep you paying forever, to keep your data flowing into their servers. The telemetry that never stops. But the forced account is just the beginning. Windows 11 collects telemetry data constantly. Diagnostic data, usage data, app data, browsing data. It's all getting scooped up and transmitted to Microsoft servers. And you can't fully disable it. Go into Settings, Privacy and Security, Diagnostics and Feedback. You'll see options for required diagnostic data and optional diagnostic data. You can turn off optional, but required is mandatory. No toggle, no option. Microsoft requires the right to collect data from your computer as a condition of using Windows 11. What data? Microsoft's documentation is deliberately vague. They say it includes device information, application performance, reliability data. But security researchers who've analyzed the network traffic found it's collecting far more. Keystroke patterns, application usage frequency, website visits when using Edge, Search queries, file names and types being accessed. This isn't just diagnostic data, this is surveillance data, and it's transmitted in ways that make it nearly impossible for average users to monitor or block. Encrypted connections, multiple endpoints, randomized timing. Microsoft engineered this system to be persistent and hidden. Jennifer Wallace is an investigative journalist in New York. She handles sensitive sources, confidential documents, whistleblower communications. She upgraded to Windows 11 in August 2024 after Microsoft's constant nagging became unbearable. Within 2 weeks, she noticed strange network activity, background data transfers she couldn't identify. She brought in a security consultant. He set up network monitoring and found Windows 11 was transmitting data to Microsoft servers every few minutes. Encrypted packets, hundreds of connections per day. Even with all privacy settings maximized, even with optional diagnostics disabled, the telemetry kept flowing. She immediately understood the implications. If Windows is transmitting data about her computer activity, that's potentially exposing information about her sources, her research, her confidential communications. She can't work under those conditions. She switched to Linux Ubuntu within a week, wiped Windows entirely. Microsoft lost a longtime customer because they built an operating system that journalists can't ethically use. And Jennifer isn't alone. Privacy advocates, lawyers, healthcare professionals, anyone handling confidential information is quietly migrating away from Windows because the privacy violations are too severe. The TPM tracking chip. Then there's the TPM 2.0 requirement, which Microsoft claims is about security. Trusted Platform Module, a chip that stores encryption keys. Sounds reasonable until you learn what it actually does. Rob Braxman, a veteran programmer who had his software demoed by Bill Gates back in the 90s, reverse-engineered how Microsoft uses TPM. What he found is disturbing. The TPM contains an endorsement key, a unique identifier burned into the chip at the factory. That key is tied to your Microsoft account when you install Windows 11. It can't be changed. It can't be deleted. It's a permanent tracking ID Microsoft controls. Rob demonstrated this live on his channel. He showed how the device ID is pulled from TPM and transmitted to Microsoft servers. He showed how third-party apps can access it via API with no restrictions. Your computer has a permanent fingerprint Microsoft can track across any internet connection, any network, anywhere in the world. This isn't about security. Security doesn't require unique tracking IDs transmitted to Microsoft. This is about surveillance. This is about ensuring Microsoft can identify your device no matter what you do, where you connect, or how you try to maintain privacy. And here's the truly insidious part. Microsoft requires TPM 2.0 to install Windows 11, which means they're forcing this tracking system on every new Windows user. You can't opt out. You can't disable it. You can't run Windows 11 without giving Microsoft a permanent tracking mechanism tied to your hardware. Carlos Rodriguez is a cybersecurity researcher in Austin. He analyzes malware, tracks threat actors, investigates cybercrimes. His work requires anonymity. If threat actors can identify his real systems, they can target him personally. He was running Windows 10 with careful operational security, local accounts, VPNs, network isolation. When Windows 10 support ended, he evaluated Windows 11, immediately saw the TPM tracking system, immediately understood he couldn't use it. The permanent device ID defeats every anonymity measure he relies on. One API call from any compromised application could expose his real hardware identity to adversaries. He switched his entire lab to Kubez OS, a security-focused Linux distribution. 20 machines, thousands of dollars in licensing that Microsoft will never see again. They lost a professional security researcher as a customer because they prioritized surveillance over user safety. Recall, the spyware Microsoft called innovation. Then Microsoft decided things weren't dystopian enough and introduced Recall. They called it AI-powered productivity. Security researchers called it the worst privacy disaster in modern computing history. Here's what Recall does. It takes screenshots of everything on your screen every few seconds. Every application, every website, every document, every message. It stores those screenshots locally and analyzes them with AI so you can search your history in natural language. Show me that email about the quarterly report, or find that website I looked at Tuesday. Sounds convenient. Microsoft marketed it as revolutionary. The problem? Security researchers immediately tore it apart and found a nightmare underneath. Kevin Beaumont, a respected security expert, analyzed Recall's architecture. What he found was catastrophic. The screenshots were stored in a local database with minimal encryption. Any malware that gained local access could read everything: your banking passwords, your private messages, your confidential documents, every screenshot sitting there, exposed, waiting to be stolen. He called it a nuclear bomb for privacy and security. He said if Recall launches as designed, it would be the most dangerous feature ever shipped in a mainstream operating system. Because it's not just collecting data. It's creating a searchable archive of literally everything you've ever done on your computer. The backlash was nuclear. Privacy advocates called it spyware. Security researchers called it malware. Major tech publications ran headlines asking if Microsoft had lost its mind. Enterprise customers threatened to refuse Windows 11 deployment if Recall couldn't be completely disabled. Microsoft panicked. They pulled Recall before the official launch. Then they brought it back as opt-in with improved encryption and biometric authentication required to access the data. But even with those changes, the fundamental problem remains. Once you give software permission to screenshot everything you do, how do you know it's really only doing what Microsoft claims? Marcus Webb learned this lesson at tremendous cost. He's a lawyer in London handling sensitive client cases, attorney-client privilege, confidential litigation documents, trade secret disputes. He upgraded to Windows 11 in January 2024 before Recall was announced because Microsoft's upgrade prompts were relentless. When Recall details leaked, he immediately understood the legal implications. If Windows is creating screenshots of everything on his screen, that's generating discoverable records of privileged communications. In litigation, opposing counsel could subpoena those records. Attorney-client privilege could be pierced because Microsoft built a feature that documents everything. He can't use Windows 11 with Recall, even disabled. Even if Microsoft swears it's truly off, how can he trust that? How can he ethically advise clients their communications are confidential when his operating system is designed to record everything? He switched his entire firm to Mac. 22 lawyers, all new MacBook Pros, cost $67,000. Microsoft lost that business because they built spyware into the OS and called it innovation. The cloud you can't escape. Windows 11 doesn't just spy on you locally, it forces cloud integration everywhere. OneDrive syncing is enabled by default and aggressively pushes you to upload files. Desktop, documents, pictures all redirected to OneDrive automatically unless you actively disable it. But disabling it isn't simple. The option is buried in settings. And even when you think you've turned it off, Windows keeps nagging you. Pop-ups telling you your files aren't backed up. Prompts encouraging you to enable OneDrive. Warnings that your data isn't safe without cloud storage. This isn't user choice. This is coercion. Microsoft wants your files in their cloud where they can scan them, analyze them, mine them for data, where they're subject to government data requests, corporate surveillance, AI training data sets. Sarah Kim experienced this nightmare. She's a high school teacher in Austin who bought a Windows 11 laptop for lesson planning, set it up, created the Microsoft account it demanded, started working. Within days, OneDrive synced her files without permission. Her student records, her grade spreadsheets, her personal lesson plans all uploaded to Microsoft's cloud. She didn't authorize it. She didn't want it. But Windows 11 did it anyway because Microsoft decided cloud storage should be default behavior. She immediately understood the privacy violation. Student data in the cloud without proper authorization could violate FERPA regulations. She could face disciplinary action for mishandling protected educational records. She spent hours figuring out how to fully disable OneDrive, how to delete the uploaded files, how to ensure Windows wouldn't sync again. And even after all that work, she doesn't trust it. Windows might re-enable OneDrive with an update. Microsoft might change the privacy settings without warning. She returned the laptop and bought a Chromebook, done with Microsoft forever. They lost an educator as a customer because they assumed they had the right to upload her files without explicit consent. The exodus Microsoft can't stop. So where are users going? Everywhere that isn't Windows. Linux desktop usage jumped from 3.2% to 4.8% in just 6 months. That's a 50% increase in Linux adoption. Mac sales in the enterprise sector are up 47% year over year. Chromebook shipments to businesses are up 89%. This isn't just users complaining online. This is mass migration. Real people spending real money to escape Windows. And it's accelerating. Rachel Morrison represents thousands of users making this choice. She's a freelance graphic designer in Portland, running a 2018 custom-built PC, Intel i7-8700K, 32GB RAM, RTX 3070. Handles Adobe Creative Suite perfectly. Fast, reliable, zero problems. Windows 10 support ended. Microsoft said she needs Windows 11. She tried to upgrade, got an error. No TPM 2.0 chip. Her motherboard is from 2018 when TPM wasn't standard. Microsoft's solution? Buy a new computer. Spend $2,500 to upgrade an operating system when her current hardware works perfectly. She's not buying a new computer. She switched to Linux Mint, spent 2 weeks learning it. Now she's running GIMP instead of Photoshop, Inkscape instead of Illustrator, DaVinci Resolve instead of Premiere Pro. She doesn't miss Windows. She actually prefers Linux now. No ads, no forced updates, no Microsoft account requirement, no telemetry, no surveillance. The computer is hers again, not Microsoft's data collection platform. That's happening millions of times across the world. Bill Gates gets dragged back in. And this is where it gets really interesting. Bill Gates hasn't run Microsoft in 17 years. He's been focused on his foundation, on philanthropy, on other projects. But when Windows 11 adoption started falling instead of rising, when the user revolt became undeniable, when enterprise customers started threatening to abandon Windows entirely, Microsoft executives pulled him into emergency strategy meetings. Because this isn't just a PR problem, this is an existential crisis. Windows has been the foundation of Microsoft's business for 40 years. It's the platform that made them dominant, and now it's dying because they chose surveillance over user trust. Gates reportedly told executives they needed to reverse course on privacy invasions, make Microsoft accounts optional again, give users real control over their data. But it's too late. The damage is done. Users have lost trust. And once trust is gone, it doesn't come back just because Microsoft promises to do better. The future Microsoft doesn't want you to see. Here's what Microsoft isn't telling you. They're reporting record cloud revenue, talking about AI integration, acting like everything's fine. But Windows 11 adoption is falling. User sentiment is at historic lows. Alternatives are thriving. If current trends continue, Windows could drop below 60% desktop market share by 2027. Linux and Mac combined could exceed Windows by 2030. Sounds impossible? Look at the data. Look at the migration rates. Look at how many people are choosing anything other than Windows. Microsoft lost control of the narrative. They lost control of their users. And they might lose Windows forever. Because they made a choice. They chose data collection over user privacy. They chose forced upgrades over user choice. They chose surveillance over trust. And users are choosing to leave. If this opened your eyes to what's really happening with Windows 11, subscribe to this channel right now, because Microsoft won't tell you this. Tech media won't cover it honestly. But these stories matter. These privacy violations matter. Your data matters. Hit that subscribe button. Turn on notifications. Because this story isn't over. The Windows 11 privacy disaster is still unfolding, and you need to know what's coming next. Subscribe now, and I'll see you in the next one. the breaking point, when trust becomes impossible. Here's the fundamental problem Microsoft can't solve. They've broken user trust so completely, so thoroughly, that even if they reversed every privacy violation tomorrow, users wouldn't believe them. When Microsoft says recall is disabled, why should anyone believe them? They forced Microsoft accounts after promising local accounts would remain an option. They patched out workarounds users found to maintain privacy. They collect required diagnostic data that users can't disable or audit. Every action Microsoft has taken tells users the same thing. We will take your data whether you consent or not. We will remove your choices. We will surveil you constantly, and we will call it innovation. That's not a foundation for trust. That's a foundation for exodus. And the exodus is happening right now, accelerating every month, spreading from tech-savvy early adopters to mainstream users to enterprise customers. Amanda Rodriguez is a physical therapist in Denver, not a tech person, just someone who uses computers for patient records and billing. She's been using Windows since the 90s, never thought about alternatives. Windows was just what you used. Until Windows 11 started showing her ads in the Start menu, ads in File Explorer, OneDrive nagging her to buy storage, Microsoft 365 prompts everywhere. She paid $900 for that laptop. It came with Windows, and Microsoft is advertising to her on hardware she owns, in an operating system she paid for through the hardware cost. She felt violated, like someone broke into her house to put up billboard ads. She asked her nephew what she should do. He set her up with Linux Mint, looks similar to Windows, does everything she needs. No ads, no surveillance, no Microsoft. She's not coming back. Microsoft lost a 30-year Windows user because they couldn't resist turning her computer into an advertising platform. The reckoning Microsoft refuses to acknowledge. If you've watched this far, you understand what Microsoft doesn't want anyone to see. Windows 11 isn't failing because of technical problems. It's failing because Microsoft chose surveillance over service. They chose data extraction over user experience. They chose corporate profit over user trust. And users are responding the only way that matters: by leaving. 400 million people still on Windows 10. Linux adoption up 50% in 6 months. Mac enterprise sales up 47%. Chromebook business shipments up 89%. These aren't statistics. These are people voting with their wallets, with their time, with their choice of platform, and they're voting against Microsoft. Bill Gates can attend all the emergency meetings he wants. But the problem isn't strategy. The problem is that Microsoft built an operating system that spies on users, restricts their choices, and demands their data as the price of using their own computers. You can't fix that with better marketing. You can't fix that with AI features. You can only fix that by fundamentally respecting users again. And Microsoft has shown repeatedly that they won't do that. So the exodus continues, and it will continue until Microsoft changes, or until Windows becomes just another operating system, not the dominant platform it's been for 40 years. Subscribe if you want to see what happens next, because this story is far from over. And you need to know what's coming. Hit that subscribe button now. I'll see you in the next one.